I wonder if you think that warthog is going to be there. Rebecca, any thoughts from all the lovely viewers as to what is going to be in that burrow? Oh, nothing. Not just yet. Okay, thanks, Bex. It's a tea party. I'd love to have a tea party in there. Okay, I can see the termite mound. We have to sneak up again. Now this wind is ruining it for us because there's a lot of flapping and I don't want to give that warthog a fright. How are we going to do this though? Because this morning we were lucky, we had the flaps up. I'm going to have to try and poke my nose to the front of it. Just going to check here. Can I see anybody yet? Not yet. Sneaking. Sneaking. Still sneaking. Is there anyone home? No. Aw. Okay, well that means I can make a little bit more noise because it doesn't look like anybody's here. There we go. No one's home. Just a big empty burrow with some flies. That's sad. I wonder where our warthog friend has gone to. I'm genuinely surprised that he's not here. It's been miserable the entire day. Oh, well that was a pity. Well, at least you got to see a fly buzzing around a termite mound, I suppose, if we want to be optimistic. And some roots and some nice green grass. I'm too scared to go in there. I think I'd go inside that hole and never come out again. Rebecca said that she's also not too keen to go inside there, and I don't blame you. Brian, would you go in there?
No.
Hey?
No.
I think the Loch Ness Monster probably lives in there. No. So sadly nothing's home. We'll have to keep persevering. We'll have to keep trying for those pesky elephants that are avoiding us. But I know Yanni's got something very exciting to tell you. You saw she was racing off somewhere, so I won't spoil the surprise. Let's go across to her so she can let you know what she's about to head to.
Hey there everybody, so you've seen me earlier with Tyler and I was racing past her, and we are on our way to go see some lions. One of the cheetah plane guides have found some lions. I'm not too sure which this pride might be. Once we get there, we'll see. We'll look at the dynamics. Maybe you can help me. I've learned a little bit about the lions that have been in the area. It's either the sticks or the VM, can you remind me about the name again? The Nkuhuma Pride, which might also be around. Alright, so we're probably another 4 minutes out from this area, but please don't bother. Suzanne, you would like to know what is my favorite folklore story, and I'd probably say it is the folklore story between the crocodile and the hippopotamus. So the folklore has it that crocodile and hippopotamus always used to eat fish, and they always used to share the pond or the dam together. But then one day it happened that the crocodile had to go away for quite some time, and crocodile was worried that hippopotamus was going to eat all the fish while the crocodile was away. So the crocodile left, and what happened when the crocodile came back was that all of the fish in the dam was eaten, and it was eaten by the hippopotamus, and he became really, really fat. So crocodile was extremely upset about this, and what happened was they went to the creator and they asked to see if they can solve this problem. So the creator said that the hippopotamus is from now on only capable or allowed to eat grass, and not the fish which the crocodile eats. And to prove that he has never eats any fish anymore, every time that he defecates, he needs to use his tail to scatter the dung around to make sure that there's no fish or any fish bones in his digestive tract. That's quite a funny little story to me. Right, but there's all kinds of different folklore stories. I mean, you also get it's just a short story of the southern yellow-billed hornbill. And the reason, I don't know how long you've been watching the show, but usually the male and female yellow-billed hornbill will duet. And when they do that, they've got their wings up and they look up and they vocalize and they sing together. And they say that the hornbill is actually just faithful while they sing this, either thanking the Creator for the rain or also for the food that is offered to them. Alright, so guys, I'm very, very excited for this. I haven't seen lions in quite some time. We've talked about it a little bit earlier, but we've only talked about the coloration. And it can differ from species, or I'd say supposedly DNA, which will also usually cause a recessive gene of an animal either being a little bit lighter or a little bit darker, but it is very, very rare to see out here in nature. Alright. So while we are making our way towards the lions, I'm going to link you over to Tristan with many, many more insects that he's got to show you.
So we do have more insects, but on the subject of folklores and such things, I thought, well, I'll chip in with my one. And given that we saw a waterbuck earlier, the one that I always like to hear, and the one that my tracker always used to tell me about and have a fat laugh every time he told me. I think he told me the same folklore about 100 times in the time that we worked together, and every single time he found it quite funny. Now, I've heard different versions of this folklore, and it's all about how the waterbuck gets its white ring. Now, I've read in a book that it was to do with when a man painted his house and he left his paint tins outside, and the waterbuck came through the village and they were up to no good, and they by mistake kicked over the paint tin, and there was a huge commotion, and this man came running out, and he was very upset that his paint was now lying all over the place, and so he threw one of the tins at the waterbuck, and the waterbuck, it got hit on the bum, and it made that perfect white circle, and it then realized, well, hang on, this is actually quite good because my little babies can see me, and so from then on, all self-respecting waterbuck had that mark on them, which is the tame one. The one that I've heard, and which was the one the tracker always used to tell me, was to do with zebras and waterbuck. And it went along the lines of something like this, which is where a zebra was painting his house and his toilet, and he painted his toilet seats, and he put a sign on the door that said, "Wet paint don't sit on my toilet seat." And the waterbuck, unfortunately, had a bad tummy and had to go to the toilet. So it went running into this toilet, and it sat down, and unfortunately it left this big white ring on its bum, and it came outside, and it was very embarrassed about this whole story, and the zebra sat there laughing for long periods of time, and the waterbuck eventually got very upset about this and grabbed the paint tin and threw the white paint on the zebra, who was black at that stage, and it formed these big white stripes that then ran down, and that's how the zebra got its coat, and the waterbuck got its ring on his bum. And like I say, not the funniest for me, but it always sticks in my mind and I always remember it, so it's one of those things. Now, while we were away and we were still having a look at our dung beetles and insects, there is something very, very interesting on one of the dung beetles. Now, I put it under the microscope and I didn't notice what it was at first. I thought it was just some sand on the back of this dung beetle, but once it was under the microscope, we noticed that it's got a few little parasitic insects on it, and I have no idea what they are, but the dung beetle unfortunately has moved a little bit, so I'm just going to move him so that we can see it, but sorry guys, but there they are, so you can see, sorry, it's just the wind is playing a bit of havoc with my dung beetle here, but there, I don't know if you can see, I don't know, man, sorry guys, we'll get it right eventually. No. Like I say, James makes this always look so easy, but my dung beetle today is not playing the game. There we go. So you can see there's these tiny little white larvae that are on this dung beetle, and they're all along the edge of the back end. And this is where it will secrete and defecate, and they're all tucked in along the edge of it, and I'm not sure what they are. I've never ever seen these, and it's probably because I don't carry a microscope out in the field with me, but it is quite incredible to see how much life is on this dung beetle. You would have thought that with this hard exoskeleton, there wouldn't be too much, but you can see it's absolutely crawling with these larvae all along the seam of its exoskeleton, and it's quite amazing to see. Now, it's busy opening up. I wonder if it's not going to excrete something. Let's have a look. I'm going to just refocus, but you can see there, it's now opened up, and you can actually almost see its rate of breathing. Now, beetles don't breathe the way that we do. They have spiracles, so small little circles that you can actually see there. Now, what happens is the spiracles pass through the front end of the beetle, and then they have these small spiracles on the back end, and that's how air then transfers through, and the beetle then breathes through that. So you can actually see the rate of breathing and those small spiracles, but these little insects have packed themselves along that edge, and I don't know what they're after. I wonder if these are not getting into the exoskeleton through this little separation and are actually feeding off this dung beetle. It would be really interesting to know if anybody's can find any information out about this or knows anything about these. It would really be interesting to hear from you. I have certainly, this is a first for me. I've never seen this before, and I'm going to try and see what I can find out about it. But isn't that incredible? It just shows you how much we actually miss on a day-to-day basis when we're driving around. You know, we see dung beetles from afar, and even on our bushwalk, and we focus on these dung beetles, and we really enjoy their kind of movement, but our dung beetle is moving around again. But like I was saying, I mean, we end up with a situation where we don't even see these kind of little parasites coming and going. There we go. So, Linda, you want to know whether dung beetles bury their balls next to one another. Well, I've never actually seen them bury their balls next to one another. I've always seen them distribute out into different directions. So often you'll find a fresh pile of dung, and in the height of the dung beetle season, it's like helicopters coming in from every direction, and there's just all these beetles that land, and then there's fighting going on and balls being rolled, and it's all quite incredible to watch. And then once everybody's rolled their balls, they then just spread out, and they all go into different directions. And I've never actually seen one follow another one along and then bury right next to each other. I think there's far too much competition with them that they'll try and chase each other away. I actually had a really incredible sighting in December where there were these two dung beetles, and they were fighting over this ball, and they were throwing each other, and we sat there for an hour watching this, and it was like a wrestling match. It reminded me of Jamie's bullfrog sighting that she had last week, which was much the same. We were talking about it being like WrestleMania, and they were literally picking each other up and throwing each other. And we were talking earlier about strength of dung beetles. Now, it was amazing to watch these dung beetles, which are the same size as one another, pick one another up and throw them, and they were throwing each other far. I mean, one ended up almost a meter away, which was really incredible to watch, and they would flick each other off this ball and go. And so I think they're far too competitive to allow other dung beetles close enough to bury their balls really where they are. Also, ultimately, the burying of the ball is not that important in terms of the area. There's so much habitat out here that anywhere where they can find a fairly sheltered place underneath a tree that's got soft ground, they can excavate there and deposit their ball. So it doesn't really matter too much, which is quite cool. So Shannon, you want to know if there are any types of insects that really enjoy the rain. Well, there is a number of insects that enjoy the rain. They may not enjoy it while the rain is falling itself, but after the rain, we start to see them really coming out. And most of those insects are insects that rely on burying their larvae in the soil. And so what happens is when we get very hot conditions like we've had over the previous 2 weeks before the cyclone arrived, the ground had become really compacted and hard and baked. It was almost like a crust had formed. And for a small little insect, it's really going to battle to be able to excavate down and deposit its larvae. So with these beetles and termites are a prime example of this. As soon as the rain comes, that ground softens and it becomes much easier to move those particles of soil and get their way down to then either deposit their larvae or start to create their home in the way of a termite. And so, yes, they will benefit from it. And funny enough, the other day, I think it was on Friday last week, I was sitting with the Nkuhuma Pride, and it was raining buckets, and as that rain came down in absolute sheets, so these termites started to emerge, and they were struggling to fly in the rain, but they were starting to come out because they had realized that this soil is now softening, and it's now time to get to one another, secrete those pheromones, meet up, and start this all this termite mound to start growing and get some sort of excavation going. So yes, there are some insects that are active in it. Like I said, the dung beetles, they'll start coming out in the rain. And if it's soft, gentle rain, then you'll find that the beetles are not too affected by it. But things like butterflies and moths will battle a little bit, unfortunate. So, sorry, Rebecca, I didn't get the name there, unfortunately. Pretty eyes, you want to know what is my favorite insect? Difficult one. I've got quite a few that I really like. The dung beetles to me are just absolutely fascinating. I really enjoy watching them and the dynamics that they have. But I think probably in terms of looks, my favorite is called a regal chafer beetle. Now, I'm going to actually just grab our insect book and I'm going to get a picture of it for you quickly because it is that spectacular. So you're just going to have to give me 2 seconds to find it. It's a beautiful, beautiful, bright green beetle with white markings. I know James has had one on the show before, but I haven't seen one this summer. They are around, but there it is there. So you can have a look. It has got these white markings with bright emerald green, yellows, and that white head. And it is a really big beetle. These regal fruit chafers, when they are fully grown, they will be about 3 centimeters long. So they're pretty much about the length of my thumb, so really big, and the colors are absolutely incredible, so I really enjoy those. And then my other favorite insect that I like to look at is millipedes. I don't know why. It's something to do with their legs. They're just mesmerizing as those legs wave along. It's really, really cool to watch. And then when they curl up in a ball, I like that kind of thing from them. So those are my 3 favorites that I like to watch and spend time. And I suppose it's also because this millipede is quite active. You see it moving around all over the place, and they do a lot of good. They break down a lot of vegetation, and so they really are very, very cool little insects. Right, so enough about my favorite insect. We're going to go back to Taylor. I believe she's got some insects, and let's find out what her favorite insect is.
We've got a pair of crested franklins disappearing into the long grass. I suspect that they are looking for insects. And I know Tristan was actually asking me what my favorite insect is. It's a tough one. I really like termites. Can you believe it? I think they're probably one of my favorite. I find them so fascinating. And then also I very much enjoy millipedes. I know they're not the most, well, exciting insects, but I love them. You saw Mildred yesterday. I have a very an amazing connection with the millipedes, so I love them very much. I think that they're fascinating, and one of the things that I think fascinate me the most by franklins, they didn't want to stay, unfortunately, is that they said that their ancestors many millions and millions of years ago, that they used to be about 6 feet long. I would love to see a millipede that's 6 feet long, wouldn't you, Brian?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing to film. You could probably, I don't know, maybe you could attach a rope and roller skate behind it. You'd go very slowly, but it'd be really amazing to go to be transported by Shongololo. I think that could be quite wonderful. I don't know, would you have train tracks for them? I don't know what kind of road you'd have for them, but yes, those are my 2 favorite. I can't choose between the 2, but termites and millipedes I think are exceptionally fascinating creatures. Maybe we'll try and find some termites, but I think because it's so cold everybody would have been tucked away and probably closed up a lot of their mounds to keep themselves nice and warm. But we'll see, we'll have a look, we'll search about. And then, oh, you know what, I forgot to tell you, I have a story to tell you, and Suzanne, I haven't forgotten. I've also thought of my favorite, I suppose you could say, it's my favorite folklore. And but before I get to the folklore, is the other day Gregory, and you know Gregory is our speaks-hinge tortoise that comes to visit on a daily basis. Gregory is a female tortoise, and I'm not even surprised by the name, but we'll just go with it anyway. And the other day Gregory walked in, and I have a video, I'll have to show you, I'll have to search for it and I'll show you. Gregory had a whip scorpion, a tailless whip scorpion on her shell. Can you believe that? It was just hitching onto her and it didn't want to get off. I actually tried to remove it because I thought that's not very nice for Gregory to have a whip scorpion on her back. And it was very funny. It was quite a big one too. Normally we find them and they're like the size of your nail. They're tiny. And this one was probably, well, I'll show you. We'll find it just now. That was really amazing to see. And then, okay, so let's go my favorite folklore. So basically, and see, I don't know, because you probably all know this story. It's the one about the hippopotamus and it not being allowed to eat fish. I don't know if you know that one. So basically, actually, you know what we'll do? Yanni. No, I don't have another one. I know lots, but I'm not a fan of the others. I like that one, and that's probably my only favorite one. I'm not gonna lie. I like the African folklores, but I don't know if they're my favorite things. I like real stories that have happened to people and things like that. To me, that's more entertaining and more funny. But anyway, that's just me, of course. Okay, I don't have one now, Suzanne, because mine was stolen by Yanni. I didn't know that she had already said that story, but that's okay. But what we're going to do, speaking of Yanni, is that she's got something exciting to show you. Let's go across to the Nkuhumas, who seem to be cuddling up in this chilly weather.
Gently, softly sleeping. We've found the Nkuhuma Pride. There's only 3 of them at the moment. And as you can see, they're also taking it quite easy. Oh, lovely. Turn around. Oh, male over there. So they're also just taking it very easy in this rainy weather at the moment. Lions don't always have the most favorable area to get coverage, to hide from the rain. But also being in the wild, it doesn't really bother them too much. You can see they get a little bit itchy, scratching a little bit there. It might have been some water that I've gotten into the ear. I'll just look at the affection there. That one's not very keen on that. Right. But lions from the big cats are one of the only sociable larger cat species out there, and it is very important for them when it comes to their hunting strategies. Lions need to have a very strong bond amongst each other so that when it comes to hunting, they can know exactly the body language of each other, as lions don't really rely on any facial expressions or any vocalization. They clearly only focus on the body language of which one of the members will give off once they've sighted something. One other way of communicating amongst lions, we as guides, we also usually keep a fine eye on the ears of lions as well as the tail. Now, out there in the bush, I know Tristan's been talking quite a lot about insects. I know Tyler talked a lot about birds today, but I'm not sure if you've ever heard of warning coloration. Now, with insects, you'll usually find it that there would be warning colorations such as black, yellow, red or white. Now, amongst mammals, that varies, or it becomes a little bit less. It will usually be black or white coloration. And if you can see carefully on the back of the ear of that lioness over there, which we am zooming in on, you can see the black coloration behind the ear. Now, the tip of the tail is also darker, and you would usually find it that when you're walking in the bush and you do come across a lion, and those black stripes behind the ears or black coloration behind the ears are completely displayed, it means that she's not happy. Also, you'll usually find it that the flicking of the tail in a situation like that while displaying those ears would also be a good sign of rather leaving these lions to be in peace. And at the moment, these lions are very, very relaxed. They can't be bothered by anything else. Mama, you're asking whether I've got an update of where the cubs are. Unfortunately, not at the moment. I do know that one set of the cubs, there are 3 sets. One set of the cubs have been born last year in May 2016, and then 2 of the litters were born in June 2016. It could be that they are just hiding in the area where we are not capable of seeing them. So we're just going to make some way quickly here for this vehicle to move out. Sorry about that, everybody. Let's see. It seems like this gentleman has found another way out of the sighting. Just give them a moment. But as far as for the cubs, we are not... Alright, okay, so as far we're not too sure where these cubs are, but I'll be back with you in about a minute's time. We're just quickly going to link over to Tristan, as I just need to reposition this vehicle.
So while Yanni repositions, I'm really excited that she's got the Nkuhuma Pride. Let's start with that. That's an amazing start to the I suppose finish to the evening. It's getting quite late now, but it's good to see that they are still around, and I hope the cubs are not too far. I'm sure they're not. Maybe they've just hidden themselves in a thicket with all this rainy weather around. But we were talking about lions, funny enough, this morning. Jamie was in the tent and we were talking about lions and where they're going, and I'm quite interested to see what's going to happen with lions. I was actually busy going to start a diagram because we found the lions, and I wanted to have a look at where all the lion prides are situated within the Sabi Sands currently and where the males are, because there's been a lot of upheaval with the males. We've seen quite a number of males that have moved into different areas. Some of the males have died. Unfortunately, one of the Majingalan coalitions have passed away, and I believe one of the Salatis as well. So there's been a lot of change in males, and that's going to be interesting to see now what changes with all the females, because as new males move around, that's obviously going to affect how the females move and how they distribute themselves, particularly the ones that have got cubs. And I'm really hoping that we don't end up with too much of a situation here. I know we had the Matimbas that came through at one stage, and luckily they bypassed without any problems for the Nkuhuma Pride. But the Majingalans have also all of a sudden started coming a lot further north than what they used to. They all used to be around the western side of the Sabi Sands, and so they were not really patrolling up here much the whole of last year. And now all of a sudden they've decided to show up again. And that's not the best news, because if they come across these Nkuhumas, unfortunately they're going to probably kill those cubs and try and get those females to come back into heat. And the Birmingham boys seem to be a bit MIA at the moment. I have not seen a Birmingham male. Well, actually, I lie. I've seen one since I've been at Safari Live, but I have not seen them as a group together in probably 6 months. So it's been a long time since I've seen all 4 together, and I actually don't know the last time all 4 were seen together. I know Jamie was commenting on it today, and the last time a group of them was seen was by Brent a few weeks ago, and there was only 3 there. I also had an update this morning that the 3 of them are on Simbambili. Well, 3 Birminghams are on Simbambili. I'm not sure which 3 are there, but I believe they are there. So that's not too far from where we are, and hopefully they will then come across. But it's been really interesting to watch the change over the last month or 2 with these male lions. Like I say, the Majingalans came in, the Birminghams have been pushing slightly more west, and it's going to be a very interesting few months to see who is then going to end up where, and whether or not the Birminghams actually have the mettle to take on a pride or group of males, a coalition as experienced as the Majingalans, because ultimately the Birminghams have not been tested. They've come into this area, and just through sheer numbers they were able to push the Matimbas out. There was really no major altercation. It's not like the Majingalans that went through this massive test to be able to take over the area. The Majingalans, when they first arrived here, they had to take on the mighty Mapocho males, and unfortunately for them, they lost one of their coalition members, but they managed to then take over the territory. So it's going to be really interesting, because the Majingalans have been put through their paces. They've had many a fight over the last few years, and they really have a lot of experience, whereas the Birminghams don't. And I actually don't think that the Birminghams have it in them to challenge those Majingalans. I've seen both the Birminghams and the Majingalans fairly recently, and the Majingalans are still massive. They are really big boys, and the 3 remaining are looking great. So they are not going to be an easy test for the Birminghams. And I know one Birmingham was actually chased by 2 Majingalans in, I think it was early January, maybe late December, somewhere around there, on a buffalo kill, and he was sent packing. So it's going to be very interesting. I reckon that we might see a little twist in the tail here, and I think the Majingalans might end up coming back into this area, and maybe we're going to end up with a showdown between the Majingalans, Matimbas, and the Birminghams, which is going to be a very interesting turn of affairs. The problem that I have with the males at the moment is that we've, funny enough, have not had too many new males showing up, which has been quite interesting. So over the last year, I haven't seen any sort of coalitions that have been developing, and the Sabi Sands has always had this thing where we've had a number of young males coming in at random times and big coalitions, and there really hasn't been too much until about a month ago when we saw the first big coalition starting to come into the Sabi Sands from the south. Now there's a coalition that's coming in from the Sand River. I'm not sure of their name actually. It starts with an M, but I can't remember it offhand. But there are 5 of them in there, and they look absolutely magnificent. They are huge boys, and so they're going to be very interesting. I wonder if they're not going to start pushing in. And then we had 2 young males apparently that arrived yesterday from the south as well. So there are some new boys coming into the game, but there's still not really those big coalitions to challenge like the Majingalans and the Timbers, the Birminghams that have all come from the north. So it will be interesting, and hopefully we're going to end up with a very entertaining few months coming ahead, and hopefully the Birmingham boys will show up and be the protectors that they need to be able to keep these Nkuhuma cubs safe. So talking of the Nkuhumas again, let's go back to Yanni, who's repositioned, and see how the Nkuhumas are doing.
Hello everyone, we are live again. We've repositioned our vehicle, and while we've been repositioning our vehicle, I know Maima, you've asked earlier where these cubs might be, or whether I've got any reports on these cubs, and guess what? We found them. They are a little bit more in the denser area. It's not the easiest to see them, but you can see the ears and the eyes gently there, and they're just resting with a little bit of more cover over there. And these cubs are about, like I said earlier, one of the litters were born in May 2016 last year, and then 2 of these litters were born in June 2016 last year. So they're quite a fairly good age. It's still absolutely adorable. I just love lion cubs. They're so sweet. Right, now for cubs, we were talking a little bit earlier on the morning game drive about Karula's 2 youngsters, Husana and Shungile, and we said that lion or leopard cubs will usually, or the mother will abandon her leopard cubs at the age of 18 months. So that's usually when they're ready to reach adulthood. Oh, one's just lifted a head there. Good afternoon, how are you? Still sleepy? Might have just been a... Christina, you'd like to know how big is a lion's head. Unfortunately, I won't be able to go and show you in human size how big these heads are, but I'd reckon if I can, it would probably be about the size of a football or a soccer ball. But obviously the shape is a little bit different. But just, oh, look at those very, very scary teeth. And that really, really rough tongue that we was talking about the leopard this morning. But lions have also got a really rough tongue, and that is also for the purpose of licking flesh loose from the bones or flesh loose from the skin. Now, those canine teeth that we just saw, they are mainly there for the killing. Those are mainly just to get through to the throat or either have a good grip on a nose grab when lions are hunting. But a lion's head is fairly big. With male lions, of course, they look a lot more dominant or a lot more scary with their bigger manes, but obviously if you're going to take that mane away from a male lion, it would be fairly much the same size of a lioness. The male lion's head might be a little bit more muscular, but not much larger from this lioness which we're seeing here. And the main purpose for a male lion having a mane is to protect his neck and his head from when two males might be in a fight. It also grows along the chest area, which are also vital areas to be protected. So that thick hair will actually prevent claws of another opponent from gashing through towards any vital veins that might be close on the surface of the skin. Okay. Stephen, you'd like to know how often lions sleep. Well, to be honest, I think lions sleep more than what they are actually active. But it really does depend from the weather and the temperatures and the conditions. But in general, they say that lions would sleep for about 20 hours of the day, and they'll be active for 4 hours of the day. Now, throughout my experience, I've seen lions being active for longer than 4 hours, and I've seen lions sleeping less than 20 hours as well. So it also just depends. It depends whether lions are really hungry, and whether they are out on a hunt. They will generally be a little bit more active in the search for anything tasty to catch or to hunt. Whereas if lions are full and they've got a kill with them, they would probably sleep and doze off for the next 3 days and finish the kill which they might be upon. But lions are mainly there to be energy sufficient. They won't just waste energy for no specific reason. Very, very energy sufficient. Let's look how that lioness is grooming her paws. Might be a thorn that she stepped in earlier, or maybe during the period of the week. Still very, very relaxed. So let me carry on further with my story. So earlier I was talking about Karula's cubs, Hosanna and Shondile, which will probably be abandoned by Karula by the age of about 18 months or so. It just all depends. Shongile might leave her mother a little bit earlier. She seems like she's a bit more dependent than Hosanna though. Now, for lion cubs, they also... There comes a time in their life where they need to leave the pride. For lionesses, it's not always the case. A young lioness might stay within the pride, or she might join her brothers and her close cousins, which she were born with. Now, in a case for a young male lion, they would usually have the opportunity to stay within the pride for the first 2.5 to 3.5 years. And then after that, that's when they become sexually matured. And that's also then when they do become a threat to the father or the dominant male, or males as I can say, of that specific pride. That is also when these fathers or these dominant males will then usually let these cubs know that it is time to go. It's almost like parents trying to tell their teenagers as soon as they finished with high school to get out of the house. Now's the time to be dependent and by yourself. Anna, you'd like to know how long male coalitions will spend with their pride. Now, it also all depends on the density of other male lions that might be in the area. And basically, the dominant male lions of a pride is there to make sure that the lionesses are kept safe, and should there be cubs, that the cubs are also kept safe. So during the younger years of the cubs and the lionesses, you'll find it that the males will generally tend to spend quite a lot of time with them. But then also, the male's duty is also to patrol its territorial boundaries and make sure that there's no other unfamiliar males that might move into the area, which might be capable of overpowering that specific coalition or that specific male of the pride. And then maybe, most likely, kill his offsprings, and as well as harming his lionesses of his pride or their pride from him. Right, so everybody, you asked earlier about the head size of a lioness, or how big is the head of a lioness, and I'm going to link over to Tristan. Tristan would be able to explain you a lot better what the size of a lion's head is. Right, so over to Tristan.
Well, indeed, we've managed to get some of the skulls out now. James has got a fantastic collection of skulls, so I've lined them all up here just so you can get a sort of size comparison between them. So Christina, I believe you were wondering the size of a big cat, or particularly a lion's skull in relation to the others. So we've got the lion on the right, which you can see is absolutely massive. It is huge. If you see the size of my hand in comparison to it, it is really, really big. You can see massive structural positions here. So this is where the muscles will come down to control the jaw, and then that crest bone where they have more muscles. And if we go to the left of that one, then we have a leopard that's over here. So that is the leopard skull. And then we have, as far as I understand, I just need to check with James, but there's a cheetah, and then right at the end, Simon the Serval with his little hat and his marula eyes. So that gives you a little bit more of a size indication of how much bigger they are. So if we take the lion's head itself, I was saying to you that you can see the size now. If I put it next to me, you can imagine how much power this animal has got. And if we open it up, you can see, look at those jaws and those teeth. The teeth are absolutely amazing. They are massive. And that is a sight you would not want to see. If you saw that, you are going to have a bit of a problem if you were this close. Now, I was saying to you earlier, you can see on the sides here, there's a massive gap between these two bones. Now this is where there's going to be muscles that are going to come up, and they're going to cover this whole area. There's this ridge that runs along here, and there's going to be massive, huge muscles that pack in here, and that is going to be able to control the bite force of this lion. And so that's why lions can bite down and cause huge amounts of damage on the prey or meat that they are trying to get to. So really, really cool to see. The other nice thing about having these skulls is that we can actually see the dental structure. So from the side here, you can see these are the big canines. So those are obviously used when they are killing the animal. They puncture in, and they can either sever the arteries or just close that windpipe down, or the nostrils of that animal, and just suffocate it altogether. But then if you look on the sides here, you have a very different tooth structure. They're almost somewhat similar to what a shark has, these triangular teeth. And basically what happens is that these teeth overlap slightly, and so it's called carnassial shear. And basically what happens is, as this lion moves its jaw, so it goes up and down like this, it's cutting and slicing using those triangular shaped teeth, slicing little chunks of meat that it's then able to swallow and manage. The canines then become absolutely useless when the feeding process begins. These teeth in the front here, you can see, are a little bit different as well. And I don't know if you've ever seen lions when they groom one another, they often use their teeth, they curl back their lips and they use these teeth. And these teeth are perfect for just pulling off small little things. So they can pull off ticks with that, get rid of bits of fur on animals if they don't want to eat the fur. And so that's what those are for. But a really incredible dental structure, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. You can also see here, I'm busy looking at it myself, there's the size of this eye area as well, massive eye space, so that they can see really, really well. So there we go. I hope that gives you a little bit more of a comparison when it comes to size and the differences between all of these big cats, and how much bigger the lion really is than everybody else. It's basically double the size of all the others in terms of the comparativeness between them all. Now, while we were busy with skulls, I also got drawing a little bit. Now, it's not really drawing, I suppose it's more doing a map. So what we have, sorry, it's getting a bit gloomy out here. I should have maybe done this a little bit earlier. But I have drawn a map of the Sabi Sands. So here is our map. I need to just add Djuma in here. So this is basically where we are, is somewhere around here. Now, my map is not exactly accurate. It's just a rough idea of what I was talking about earlier and where the prides that we are seeing currently are distributed. So you can actually see at the moment the Nkuhuma Pride have shifted way north. Had you seen this map in the dry period, so during the drought, the Nkuhumas probably would have been more along the lines of that. All right, they were really localized around Djuma, but they have now shifted out into the Manyeleti game reserve, so they've gone in here. And the reason why is because the grass that grows in the Manyeleti is really, really good quality. And so we have a number of buffalo there, and that's why the Nkuhumas have moved. They specialize in buffalo, and so they've pushed up there. Now, while it's been a bit sad that we haven't seen much of the Nkuhumas, it's been good because it's allowed the hyenas to come back. So you can see just south of them is the sticks. And then what I did is I didn't do any of the other really big prides of females, but I put all the males in. So you can see at the moment the Birminghams are all here. The Majingalans have an absolutely massive territory. They control this whole western side. Then there's the coalition of two, the Matsapiri males, and then down in the south is where all the changes are happening. So you've got the Charleston males, which are two, and then you've got these new males, so the two new ones that arrived yesterday, and then the 5 that have been coming in over the last month. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. Now, historically, in the time that I've spent in the Sabi Sands, these southern males never push northwards. All right, I've never seen any of the southern males starting to come up, and that's probably because they have the 2 rivers down at the bottom, so a lot of prey animals down there, also quite a few prides to dominate, and it's been because they've had the Majingalans and the Matimbas right in the north, which has made it a lot more difficult for them to come up. Now that they're all weakening, it's going to be very interesting. I wonder if these 5 are not going to start looking further afield and seeing what they can find deeper into the Sabi Sands. All right, and so that's a little bit of the lion dynamics. Let's go back to Yanni's with the lions and see what they're up to.
Right, everybody, I'm sure that you've now seen the size of a lion's head. I believe that Tristan have also shown you the size of their canines, and he's also showed you where all of the lion pride's territorial areas are, where they're roaming. So we're just sitting here or watching one of the Nkuhuma females grooming herself at the moment. Just making sure she's clean. She might know that the males might be arriving, and if I believe it. No. David, you would like to know whether lions really lick their paws before hunting. I've never experienced or seen that a lion will lick its paws before it hunts. I think it's mainly more just a grooming behavior which they have had, and they will groom their feet whenever they feel that it is needed. Usually on days like this when lions will be sleeping and just before they actually get active. That is when you'll find when they will be grooming herself. So if you think about it, she's been lying in the in the rain the whole day. They've also been walking around quite a bit. This is about the time that lions will usually get active. So we probably, if the sun was shining, the sun would have probably started setting already. And it's just basically a sign of them. Look at those two. Also getting a little bit active, kicking each other there. But yeah, it's just a sign that they are getting ready to start to get active. All right. Those two youngsters seem as if they are very, very lazy at the moment. It's almost like in the mornings when you have to get up for school or get ready for work and that alarm goes off and you just wish that you can put it on a snooze for 5 more minutes. This is what this reminds me about at the moment. Feet in the air, Just a last little snooze. I don't really think that they will be hunting, but they might be moving just from one area to the other. You can see that there was one lying down who gave a yawn just now. Canis from Canada. What is the biggest threat to a pride of lions? Canis, to a pride of lions, it would probably be a very, very, very large coalition of males. Once again, it really does differ from area to area and the group dynamics of specific prides or over South Africa. But let's take, for example, there's a lion pride who's got 2 very healthy dominant males within the pride, and let's say, for example, 6 or 7 lionesses. Should there be a coalition of 4 to even 6 males within a new coalition who is looking to overtake a territory, both the setted dominant pride with the 2 male lions and then the 6 lionesses will be at threat. Of course, those 2 male lions or the dominant males will be taken over, or they will be kicked out of the pride, and then should the lionesses not be submissive, it could also be a dangerous situation for the lionesses itself. Otherwise, something else which will probably be capable of wiping out a complete pride of lions, males along with lionesses, would probably be a severe disease, which is not very often heard from. You can see there's quite a lot of yawning going on, a little bit of stretching from the 2 youngsters there. The cubs are still very much at ease and very pleased to have a little bit more of a cover in this rain. And this lioness is fast asleep. Oh, she's just woken up there. This lion on the right hand side reminds me of a dog scratching himself sitting on a lawn. Looks rather enjoyable though. Just a little bit behind the ear. So Pamela, you'd like to know when the cubs would be safe from other males. So the cubs are currently safe from other males as long as they stay with their mothers within the given territory of their pride. And these cubs will then be basically safe up until the age of 2.5 to 3.5 years. Unless there might be a possibility of another coalition of males that might be moving in. But I think here in the Sabi Sand area, I'm sure there's quite a lot of people that are familiar with the Birmingham boys. I don't know the Birmingham boys very well, but I do know that they are a very powerful coalition of males. And look here, one of the lionesses have just called the cubs. Look, everyone, they're coming out. Just a little bit of greeting going on there. Sorry, everybody. Isn't this just adorable? A it's almost hard to think that if you look at these lions like this, the bonding that's going on, and the gentle greetings, the head rubs, that you almost think that lions are harmless. There's a little bit of a yoga pose over there, good old stretch on the back. Everybody's getting rid of a few ticks that might have been climbing on top of them during the day. There's quite a bit of talking that's going on. Right, everybody, while we're waiting for these lions, the cubs and the lionesses, to see what they are going to do, what they are going to get up to, I'd like to link over to Tristan and see what he is up to in the tent.
Well, Yanni, I'm sitting here a bit green with envy. I'm watching you and your lions, and the cubs are looking like they're being very cute, coming and greeting the mothers and having a real good time. I think they're quite happy that the rains maybe subsided a little bit, and they can now come and get a good grooming from mom and a little wash and get rid of all that water and ticks and things that have gotten onto them during the day. So it looks like quite a sighting there, and lots of little murmuring and talking. So very, very cute. Now, because it's getting quite dark, I was looking around and we managed to find a moth, but I noticed that this moth, unfortunately, is not alive anymore. It is died. But the interesting when it had died, so it was obviously, I wonder if maybe it just had a problem and the eggs got stuck or something, and that's why it didn't finish the job. But it's amazing because I've now put it under the microscope and we can actually see the little moth eggs, which is incredible. So there you can see them. On the back end of the moth are those little yellow balls. Now, I'm not sure whether these will hatch. I reckon these moth eggs are going to not hatch. But what we're going to do is I think I'm going to hold on to this moth for the next few weeks, and I want to see if they will eventually come out and we will see little larvae or caterpillars coming out of these little eggs. Wouldn't that be cool if we could get them going? Now, I know James has been trying really hard with caterpillars to raise them and to get them going and to see if he can hatch them all the way through until they pupate into an adult, but he has had no luck because I think, unfortunately for James, is that the birds are getting into his little garden. But we'll see if we can put this in a little bit more of a safer place. And if I get caterpillars, then I'm going to try and see if I can feed them and grow them up, and maybe it will be a nice project over the next few days to be able to grow them and see how far we go. Now, while we were off air, I was also thinking about all the insects that we've done today, and we covered blowflies and moths and dung beetles and spoken about all kinds of others. And I was researching a little bit about the blowflies. So earlier I got asked how long do they live for. And as I said, it's a very varied lifespan, and flies generally are very varied. I've found quite a lot of information on it, but the blowflies themselves will only live between 2 and 8 weeks, so a very short space of time that they're alive. There are some flies that will live a number of years, so that's quite interesting. And so there's the mystery of that has been solved. And like I said, I would be glad that the blowflies don't live too much longer. They creep me out a little bit, I must be honest. Can you imagine your job is to go land on rotten meat, and the maggots are probably the worst part about it. Although maggots are very useful when it comes to fishing, and being a big fisherman, maybe I'll have to change my mind a little bit and use them. Although I prefer to do fly fishing and use artificial things to get the catch of the day. All right, so now that we're done with our little moth, I also found another really cool insect, and we were talking earlier about regal chafers. A regal chafer is a very pretty insect that what I wish I could find, and I haven't found. But what I did find was a very interesting little chafer. He's right here. He's also unfortunately no longer with us. But this chafer is called a woolly chafer. And you can see why it's called a woolly chafer. It looks like it's got a 80s hairdo. It's covered in hair. Unfortunately, it's a little bit wet, so the hair is all slickened down at the moment. It looks like he's had a bit of oiling on his hair and flattened it all out. So maybe he's going to his matric dance, or he's going to a prom or something like that. But this little insect is really cool. I haven't seen too many of them around, and it literally is just fur everywhere. So I think I'm going to maybe name it. What was the name of the Addams Family character, Craig? It or Thing? Which one? It. Cousin It. So that shall be Cousin It from now on, and I'm sure we'll give Cousin It a go under the microscope later. I want to have a look at what's living in its hair. I would imagine if we found little insects on the dung beetle that maybe there's some little parasites in that furry material. It is the perfect place for for parasites, like I say, to jump in and latch on and stay. I wonder if even ticks do get in there. It'd be quite interesting. There's very little information on woolly chafer beetles. I've checked all over the internet and really not very much about them. Just lots of images of them, but very little information. Now, chafer beetles are quite common in South Africa. We get numerous different species, and they're actually a big pest. There's one in particular called a European chafer. Luckily, we don't get it here, but it's a real big pest in North America, and as the name suggests, it comes from Europe, but it destroys crops and it causes a lot of issues in that area. So, they can be a bit of a problem. Out here, they're really good because they help us with pollinating of flowers, particularly the fruit chafers. They go from flower to flower and they carry pollen with them as they go. So really useful little insects, but they can be a pain. I know some people that grow roses. There's a black and yellow chafer beetle that we get, and those of us that have grown up in Joburg know that there's quite a few in that area. And I remember my mom used to grow roses and she used to hate them. They used to eat all the rose petals and cause a little bit of damage. While we were also off air, we had a nice stop from one of the girls in FC. They were very kind to bring us some hot chocolate. So Craig and I have been dining on hot chocolate. I feel quite bad because the two girls are out in the cold, although I suppose Yanni's got the lions, so we don't have to feel too bad for her. But Craig and I have been enjoying a very delicious cup of hot chocolate, watching the lions. The rain has been pitter-pattering on the roof of the tent, and I tell you what, it's been quite comfortable. I've thoroughly enjoyed my afternoon, and you can hear now some of the birds are just starting to call their last call. So that's one of the francolins that's making a bit of noise, and so they're going to just call, and that'll be the end of it. As outside is getting very dark, so I'm actually surprised that those birds are still awake. Maybe the lights of the tent are keeping them up, and we shall shut down just now and give them some peace. But it's nice to hear that changeover, and I would imagine tonight, maybe in the next sort of 20 minutes or so, we should start hearing quite a number of frogs. So it would be a really good evening to go out looking for frogs. I know Taylor's absolutely besotted with frogs, so I'm sure on her way home tonight she's going to be out and looking and trying to see what she can find. The other day we were talking about she had never seen a banded rubber frog. And now, for those of you who don't know what a banded rubber frog is, we had them all over the place, and so I sent Taylor to go and have a look, and I'm not sure if she saw them. She was going to have to let me know because I forgot to ask her, but I will show you what we're talking about for those of you that didn't join us on Friday morning. So there we go. That's our banded rubber frog. You can see it's a very pretty little frog. It's got those blacks with reds on them, and I know Yanni was talking earlier about colorations that are warnings, and that is exactly what she was talking about. Blacks and reds are really big warning colors in the bush, and it's telling everybody, do not eat me, I'm poisonous. And this frog will secrete a toxic latex through its skin, and us as people, if we touch it, can make you quite ill. I don't think you can die from it. In fact, I've tried to read anything about it, and there's been no real firm clarification if people have died, but I do know that it is very, very bad for you. But they are absolutely beautiful, and they have this beautiful call. And funny enough, they're Brent's favorite frog, and so I'm sure if Taylor didn't find them last week, I'm sure she should look this evening. I would hope that she would be able to get a bit of luck with them. And like I was saying, I was hoping to hear them a little bit, but unfortunately not too much has come through. Right. So, enough of me waffling on in the tent. I think let's go back to Yanni and the Nkuhumas and see what they're up to.
Seems like these lions are just lazy and grooming themselves. This little cub earlier, we were watching him, and he was literally just grooming, because grooming is grooming. He probably groomed 3 of the individuals that's right there, and he has the opportunities to still feed off mom. Well, it might not be mom, I'm not too sure. Usually within a pride of lions, the aunts or the rest of the lionesses will also usually help to nurse the cubs of the one specific mother. So it's not really much of a problem. But usually at this age, like, these cubs have got fairly sharp teeth already, so it can get a little bit sensitive for the females at sometimes. Sorry everybody, I've developed like a really nasty cough throughout this afternoon. Leslie, you'd like to know when a male lion reaches his prime time. That will usually be between the ages of 4 and 5, let's say 4.5 to 5 years. It all really just depends also on the specific area, because like I've explained earlier, once the young male cubs leave the pride, or get kicked out of the pride by the dominant males or the fathers, they live a nomadic lifestyle, and living that specific nomadic lifestyle, they walk around in no man's land, and they also walk amongst other dominant or territorial areas of other lions. So should these young males be seen by a dominant territorial male lion, they would usually either try and kill these unknown young male lions or just chase them away. So these young males then need to fend themselves, or a young male then usually need to fend themselves and make very sure that they don't land up under the claws of another dominant male lion that might either kill them and prevent them from reaching their adulthood or their prime time, as you would say. So if you kind of think about it, young male lions have got it pretty tough, but for the lionesses it might be a little bit easier. Here we go, mama's boy. See, this cub still have got nothing to worry about. So, you'd like to know whether males' mane turns grey as they get old. Sarah, no, the mane does not get grey as these male lions get older. It might happen that it loses a little bit of the volume of the mane itself, and they might lose a few pieces of hair, but not really too much. The coloration of the mane won't change too much from its original color. You also find it that there's different colors of manes. I think earlier today on the show I was talking a little bit of lucidism, but that's going to extremities. You'll sometimes find that male lions will have pitch black manes. Some male lions will only have a tawny colored mane, and some might have like a golden color. And that's all got to do with the genes or the genetics of the specific lion pride family. So he's looking all straight in the eye. One lioness at the back is giving a contact calling there. She's not, it's like almost like a half-hearted roar that she's getting. One of the cubs have moved back into the bush just to the left of these lionesses, and I think she might just be calling these cubs to move closer to them. Vanessa, you from Los Angeles, you'd like to know whether a lioness can survive on her own without a pride. Vanessa, yes, a lioness can survive on her own, as she is perfectly capable of hunting by herself. But then there would also, once again, I was talking quite a lot about it all depends on the density of predators in the specific area. But in general, yes, a lioness is pretty much capable of looking after herself. Isn't this lovely? Hey everybody, I don't think these lions are going to get very active throughout the evening, maybe only much later, but this has been an absolutely great surprise for the afternoon that we had, from miserable wet birds to Tristan's interesting talks and investigations on insects. I know he was quite excited about this afternoon. You see this lioness is contact calling again. Come on, kids. It seems like she stopped calling, or contact calling. There's another good old stretch. A little bit of a head rub. Let's just see where these guys are going. Oh, alright, it's only gone to the bathroom. Alright everybody, so from my side, thank you very much. I'm going to be linking over to Taylor just for an update from her side.
Right, yeah, I know I've been gone for such a long time, but I went dashing off to see if I could find all of you a leopard. I must tell you, Tingana was around, but he was so sneaky, he disappeared off of the traverse before we could even get there. How sad is that? So we're back on Djuma again. We're slowly starting to make our way home, and I must tell you, I can't believe how wet and saturated the roads are all of a sudden. They've obviously definitely reached sort of the peak of how much water the soil can hold, and now all these massive puddles have formed on the roads. They are really, well, that's a really small one that we just drove through, but along Twin Dams there were some monster puddles that were very, very deep. And I wonder if we're going to see any frogs on the way home. Oh, sorry, the little bronze wing horses sitting on the road. There you go, it's flown off. Birds are definitely out in full force. Obviously we don't want to spotlight any of these birds, but been seeing lots of water thickneys, lots of bronze wing horses, and I know earlier Tristan was asking if I managed to find the banded rubber frog, that one sort of between drives where I took the girls out to go and have a look, and sadly not. I didn't find anything, which was very sad. I could just hear them, and I searched and searched, and I waded through some very shallow water to see if I could spot them, but they eluded me. But that's okay. I'm in no rush to see them. I'll see them eventually. Maybe Tristan will just have to take me out frogging in order to find them. And I also want to see the golden leaf folding frog. So that might be a task for Tristan. He can take me out frogging, which would be lots of fun, I'm sure. I'll have to get some gumboots though, so that we can go wading properly, and some nets so that we can actually catch them very safely without touching them with our hands, with all the perfumes and lotions and things that we use. We don't want to touch their very sensitive skin, of course. So it would be nice if we could get a little net of some sort, just so that we could have a look, maybe photograph for ID purposes. I'd like to take a picture, and then of course set it free, which would be really nice. I'd love to do that. It's one of my favorite. It is one of my favorite things to do, and I must say I've been quite terrible. I haven't actually been off doing as much frogging as I should. But how lovely that you got to see the Nkuhumas, and I'm sure that Yanni is excited to finally see a cat, and I hope that they decide to come back, don't you?
Alright, so it seems like these Nkuhumas have decided to have a early lie-in evening, or rather say a late evening lie-in. You can say it like that. All three lionesses seems fairly much, well, almost fast asleep, with one cub over there, and the lioness with her head up at the moment is still contact calling the cubs, really just a few meters away from her. She might be calling them for the reason, maybe for body heat, maybe her. Keep her. Michael alive can travel for quite a distance. It will probably be up to about 80 meters or so. I think also depending on the specific area which you're in, if it's dense bush or so, the call won't travel that far. If it's open cleared areas and open plains, of course the sound will travel a lot further. But when lions do roar, the sound can travel as far as 6 to 8 kilometers away from where these lions are calling. And that is just absolutely incredible. And the way how they get that right is when they produce their sound, so almost where a man's apples Adam would be, there are 3 cartilage bones vertically situated. So when a male lion starts breathing in and he presses this air from its stomach and from his lungs through the air box, these 3 cartilage bones basically forces that air through the voice box, which then basically give the phenomenal roar and the phenomenal sound of what a male lion can give. A lioness's roar can travel just as far as that, and the sound that she produces is also exactly the same way. Right. Of course, lions also make a few other sounds, or produce another few other sounds. Of course, there's the contact calling, which we just talked about. There's roaring, there's snarling as well. And it's fairly much most of the sounds which I've heard lions make before. Well, just before we close, I'm going to link over to Tristan. It doesn't seem as if these lions are going to do anything active this afternoon, but let's follow up again in the morning safari live drive. Thank you.
So welcome back, guys, to our little cozy tent. It's all very, very pleasant inside here, although the lights are now starting to attract the mosquitoes and I'm starting to get eaten alive, which is not so cozy. But it's been a great afternoon. I'm so glad the Nkuhumas are back, and I wonder if the contact calling, while I'm sure the cubs are listening to it, is not to try and find the other 2 females, because it's a bit of a mystery at the moment. No one's really sure where the other 2 are. The last time they were seen was on Arathusa, and I believe that they maybe have gone into Buffels Hook or Manuleti, and so maybe they're around that area, and that's why there's a few contact calls going on as well, is to be able to try and bring those females back and to reunite the pride. And I'm still unsure as to why those two have split off. I wonder if maybe one is not starting to show signs of pregnancy and maybe is looking for a den. That would be really interesting if she is, and it would be amazing if she came back to Djuma to den. I also just want to take the opportunity while we're here and just before we say goodbye, just to thank all the viewers that have stuck with us through the school shows. I know it is a little bit different when we do the school shows, but it's been a year since we've started them, and they really are very, very important. It's great to be able to educate the youth of today and to allow them to be to show them this wilderness. So it's very, 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 very good for us, and the presenters love it. So amazing to have them. Well, from myself and Craig and Taylor and Yanni, it's been a great afternoon. Hopefully it will be a dry start to our sunrise safari tomorrow morning. We look forward to joining you all, and we'll see you all tomorrow.